Oh my God.
Alrighty, Elevation Nation, what's going on? We got a special guest for you tonight, this morning. Whenever you listen to the podcast, Garrett Thomas of Goldies joins us. Garrett, welcome to the show. We're pumped to hang
Thanks
out.
for having me, guys.
Garrett, this is going to be sick. Again, like I said, Parker calls me right after he meets you. We had a screening call a few weeks ago, and he's like, yo, Panitch, you're going to love this Garrett guy, man. His energy is exactly like ours. He thinks the same way. New York kid, right? Like, you guys are going to hit it off. And so, like I said, you got some big shoes to fill. I'm ready to get into this conversation, man. It's an honor to have you on the pod.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited, guys. I think it's, meeting new people. I see what you guys are doing with Elevation Nation. It's obviously something that I'd love to be in the orbit of. So, I think it's going to be a great fit.
We're ready to have you in this nation, man. This is beautiful.
We are pumped. But Garrett, everyone who joins Elevation Nation, I don't know if you listen to any episodes or not, we all hear their elevator pitch. You got to introduce yourself to the nation. Who are you, Garrett?
All right, man. I'm Garrett from Goldies. Who am I? Oh, man. So I'm Garrett from Goldies. I started a seltzer company in New York City out of Brooklyn a year ago, making sophisticated seltzers, kind of better for you carbonated beverages. We've taken a little bit of a different, more holistic approach to your traditional drink. We're a content company just as much as we are a beverage company. And we do a ton of in-person events around the city. So everything from concerts to mixers to, we'll rent a boat and sail around Manhattan Bay. It's really just geared towards not necessarily alcohol is bad, but more, hey, if we can figure out how to capture the energy of a traditional drinking event and maybe just drink 50% less or 25% less. So instead of drinking 5 drinks, you're drinking 2 drinks kind of thing. That's what we're all about. And we're speaking to that consumer that is trying to drink a little less. So I'm Garrett from Goldie, started it, run the content myself. I'm lugging this stuff around town. I still work full time at an investment bank too. So it's kind of, it's very much a Batman, Bruce Wayne situation, but everything's been going insanely well. I think it's a message that everybody wants to hear, and I'm kind of a lightning rod for low and no drinkers in New York City now.
I mean, we got a lot to unpack there, but the first thing I want to say is I love the Batman analogy. That's far more elegant than the analogy I have in my head of being some Silicon Valley nerd finishing my full-time job and then working on Elevation Nation. So I'm going to steal that and start using that for when I describe our company.
Like
but
that.
It resonates a lot. Dude, that resonates a ton with me because Parker and I finish our full-time jobs and then we turn on our switch of wanting to build something for ourselves. So I guess one of the things I'm curious about is investment banker, right? Making a lot of money in New York. You're in the finance world. So money wasn't necessarily, if I had to guess, the motivator behind doing something yourself. No. What was that spark for you for doing something with Goldie?
Well, it all started, so I stopped drinking 3 years ago. I just was finding, there was about a year period where I was finding my drinking habits weren't serving me. And people weren't really talking about not drinking as much as they are now. I feel like it's very on vogue now to be saying, hey, yeah, I'm trying to drink less or make a concentrated effort to make a change in people's habits. But back then, I didn't really have that. And I knew I was, you guys know how it is. It's drinking on a date. It's drinking with the boys. It might be a drinking on a Sunday for Super Bowl weekend. I'll tell you, the Super Bowl was yesterday. Every day, this was the first one I ever woke up not hungover. And it's like on a Monday, everybody's saying, oh, the Super Bowl Monday should be a national holiday. And I was like skipping around on my walk this morning. So, so I stopped drinking 3 years ago and made this big lifestyle change. I think for younger guys that are in their early to mid 20s, drinking is a part of your identity. Just as much as living in New York City can be a part of your identity, what you do is part of your identity. And I had to make a serious, drastic change on who I was and who I wanted to be. And when I kind of did the calculus on you got to give up something. And for me, it was drinking. And it's, at first, it's tough at first. And then the pandemic happened. And then the weeks turned into months, turned into years. And next thing I knew, I wasn't drinking for years. And when things started opening back up, I said, well, I need a drink too. Everybody's drinking these White Claws and High Noons and stuff. Like, I need to drink something too. Who's speaking to the low alcohol consumer? And that's kind of what sparked the idea for Goldies, and said, you know, I see other guys doing it. I feel like I could do it better. So very much a little bit of a narcissistic kind of like, hey, who's speaking to me? I can do this. And of course it was naive because making drinks is hard and the beverage industry is mega competitive, but luckily I'm a mega competitive guy. So, you know, we jumped in head first, pretty much self-funded. A couple buddies gave me a few bucks, but really not too much. So we've been punching massively above our weight class for about a year now, and it's been going insanely well. Like I said earlier, it's the product, which are the beverages, it's the in-person events, and now it's the social media, and it's kind of tying that all together.
Well, I want to mention one thing really quick, Parks. You said that it was narcissistic of you to start this, and you know, it's funny you say that because Parker and I started Elevation Nation for ourselves
exactly.
as well, man.
That's what it is.
Like that's how it all starts. And I used to joke that when we started the podcast, I was at my lowest point I've been, right? Moved to New York, had a job I didn't like, didn't know who I was or what I was doing. And that's what inspired us to want to reach out and talk to people. And we like to joke that was our first form of therapy because it was free, right? Like we bought these microphones, we slapped it together, and I started interviewing people who were smarter and had their shit together so that I could learn from them. And so I think a lot of good ideas start out of narcissism, and I certainly don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, it's not. And
I
say it in a joking manner. It's more saying, hey, who's going to capture that, you know, young working professional in New York City? And it's not going to be the message of alcohol bad is not going to land. And I'm trying to talk to the guy that's looking to drink 50% less. And you know, I do not mix words when I say stopping drinking changed my life for the better. Not in some cornball come to Jesus way. I am clipping at a way higher pace. I'm working 2 jobs. I've never been healthier. I sleep better. I'm a better boyfriend, husband, like whatever, man. You know, I care more and I'm more present there. You know, the list goes on and on. So, you know, I always try and tell people, but nobody wants to jump into the deep end. So you want to dip your toes, make sure the water's warm at first. So the message for me is like, hey, maybe drink a little less.
I think it's so interesting because when I think about non-alcoholic adult beverages, right? Like I think about, you know, the sober person who had issues with alcohol. I think about the person who, you know, who wants to be in a bar and should not drink beer, should not drink vodka. And it's really, really weird that that's the stereotype that was created because I remember when we were talking a few weeks ago, you were like, you know, what about the person who just wants to hang out and have like a Coca-Cola or whatever, something that's not alcoholic, but like soda's like a children's drink essentially.
Yeah, and that consumer is willing to spend money too, by the way. It's not, there's no cannibalism at the bar between, you're talking about someone who's getting a soda water with a lime for $0 or that's willing to spend $4 or $5 on a beverage, but doesn't want like a Coke or a Red Bull. So that's kind of the message and where we're coming from and what we're trying to do here.
And back to where I was going with that, it was like, you're not saying to people like this is a drink no alcohol business. Like we want you to drink less alcohol with Goldies, right? Exactly. And we are the option for that. It's not saying, oh, hey, here's a beer and maybe, okay, you have the option for Goldies and it's still a really delicious drink that is just so happen to be non-alcoholic.
Exactly. And there's going to be no stigma about, you know, I get messages every day from young guys being like, hey man, I'm having a tough time making a change, and like seeing some of your content is really making it a lot easier for me to say, hey, you know, I'm going to take a night off here or there. I will say for me, when I made that big change, I had a really tough time. I tried to do moderation for 2 or 3 months beforehand, and I had a really tough time moderating because I still considered myself a drinker. And that was where, you know, a drinker wants to have a couple beers at the hockey game because it's all, of course, you've always had that. It's part of your identity. And it's funny. So I went completely sober for probably like 2.5 years, and I started drinking just a little bit again. I would say like maybe 2 or 3 times a year, like at a wedding. I had an engagement party last weekend, so I had a glass of champagne like that. I'm just being very, very deliberate about my drinking habits. I think that's where people really should try and settle into. I think that's the optimal way to live, is being more deliberate about drinking habits. And, we're just trying to move that pendulum, move the needle a little bit towards that, in that direction.
And I think being more deliberate goes beyond, to your point, just drinking.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And you talked about your mindset shift and how you feel a lot sharper, and drinking less and moderation and being deliberate with your drinking shifted who you were. I think there is this trend where, as education and information is becoming more available through social media for people, trends and health tips and fitness and all this stuff is all at our fingertips. And we're all trying to, I'm going to be cheesy here, we're all trying to elevate our lives and become a little bit better each and every day. And so we're being deliberate about a lot of those things, right? Parker and I take cold showers in the morning. We meditate. We write in a gratefulness journal. We have affirmations. We hear about all these things. And our generation is the one that's starting to put these into our daily routines. So being deliberate about drinking does not seem far off at all. It seems super
No, it
normal.
does. And it's funny, like you kind of alluded to it, the more information we're learning, the government, I'm Canadian, so and the government of Canada recently just updated their drinking guidelines to 2 drinks a week is what would be considered no risk.
Wow.
Which it used to be 2 drinks a day. So it's there are massive risks associated with drinking. And I think there is the dark underbelly that we don't talk about, but there's things like cancers and things like not sleeping well and stress and elevated cortisol. There are so many things, but guys, you're never going to get a Super Bowl commercial saying, hey, maybe you want to take a day off. What you're going to see is, hey, drink a Budweiser. Hey, have a shot of tequila. Hey, you want to be a fun person with the guys? Here's a beer. That counter narrative of, hey, by the way, maybe don't. Nobody's going to pay $7 million for that. So that ad you're not going to see. So I think, with the rise of TikToks and podcasting, and even I would say independent media to some degree, but I would really say social media, it's given a voice to the counter narrative, especially in the health and wellness space. Now, there is some misinformation and you can go too far in the other direction too. But I will say that message of, hey, yeah, guys, you don't need to drink all the time. You don't need to drink 4 times a week. You don't need to drink on a date. Did you know that? You don't need to. You think it's mature? You don't need to. And
it's become, in our society, it's just become part of going out. Especially in New York City. Let's talk about, you go out on a Friday night, right? It just feels as if, okay, I'm going out, I'm going to dinner with friends, or I'm going to a bar. You don't even think twice.
Yeah. You are not critical
about
of your
drinking.
habits. Nobody's ever critical of their habits. And I know you guys have talked about it. Cold showers, changing habits, gratitude journal. You have to reflect on your drinking habits. What big alcohol wants you to do is not do that. They want to just ingrain in your life and be there. They want you to have the glass of wine or 2 with dinner every night, and that's what they want.
But also to it is, it's also known to be addictive. Yeah. Like, that's the other added element right there, right? Like, we can say, oh, I'm going to take a step back, but we know scientifically that it is addictive.
Yeah, and it's hyper glorified a little bit too. I would say things like mommy wine culture, for example. I see things on TikTok where moms are putting down half a bottle of wine at their son's soccer practice, and it's kind of like a ha ha ha, and it's like very much not ha ha ha. Actually, like
Are you serious?
Oh, for sure, man. For sure. Hyper glorified.
Oh my God.
It's almost interesting, right? So in today's day and age, we're going to go a little deep here. Mental health is at the forefront, right? We have more information on people. Like, I go to therapy now. Like, I'm cool saying that. Where before, people were like, what's wrong with Sam, right? No, I go to the gym every day. Why would I not go work on my brain? And so mental health is more normal, but yet we seem to have polar opposites, right? Where you have Parker and I and people talking about mental health and therapy and issues they're going through, which is awesome. But then we have the opposite end of the spectrum where, to your point, people make jokes about when they're struggling, they turn to other things, non-healthy things, and they make a joke of it. And it's almost a cry for help.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
right?
It's a little self-deprecating humor away. It's coping mechanisms, and it's a way to rationalize behavior. I talk about this all the time. I've been really lucky. I feel like I've been having a lot deeper conversations with my friends now in my early 30s, talking about love, life, career, not just drinking. And one of the things, a theme that I always try and bring up is how our brains want predictability. So things like self-sabotage and things like falling back into bad habits and going back to your ex, for example, is a way of your brain optimizing for predictability. And your brain doesn't want to necessarily it wants the steady state, and it doesn't want to challenge yourself. And that's some of these habits that people fall back into are because you can predict when you're drinking, for example, or you're not going to the gym. Like, you can predict you're sitting on the couch. That's a fuzzy, warm feeling for people's brains.
I think it's so interesting that you bring that up. Sam and I, we've had a lot of conversations around the comfort zone and how so many people, I mean, we all live in the comfort zone in some regard, and it's so difficult at times to get outside the comfort zone. But what's really interesting is outside the comfort zone is where true elevation happens, right? To have the mental fortitude to say, hey, I'm in this position where it's like, you know what, tonight I'm going to drink a glass of wine, and tomorrow I'll do the work. That's comfortable. It feels good. Instead of doing the extra mile, putting that glass of wine aside and doing that extra thing. Or it could be something so much bigger, right? And it's just so interesting that as there's so many things in our face, like the phone, for example. Oh, I'll just hang out on TikTok all day.
For sure.
That's comfortable.
For sure.
Right? And like, crazy.
I'm finding myself in it now. Like, and when you talk about breaking habits, so I'm making a very deliberate move to charge my phone away from my bed. And it's funny, even still to this day, I find myself sometimes rolling over and reaching for it. And that little, it can be a little scary too, because you can feel yourself doing it subconscious, but like, our reptile brains have not evolved fast enough. When you're seeing the flash of colors and the constant stream of dopamine release, it is addictive. It's not just drinking. It's all things in life, right? You got to be very hyper aware.
Do you ever get like you're walking around, your phone's in your pocket, and then for some reason you just feel like, oh wait, did my phone just vibrate? And then you look at your phone and you realize no one texted you.
Oh, bro,
no
I'm way
one called
past
you.
that. I
You
check it
literally
religiously to begin with.
like, that is crazy.
I check it religiously. It's one of the big downfalls of being on TikTok. I think content's core to my strategy, and owning the relationship with your customer is core to my strategy. And that means you got to be on TikTok. That means you got to be on Instagram. And if you're doing cool shit and nobody knows about it, I'm sorry. Like, it's kind of like if a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it kind of thing, right? Like, you got to make noise. People, if you're doing things like this podcast, people need to hear about it, and you got to self-promote, and you got to get the word out. And that's the only way. It's part of the strategy.
We talked with a former guest and a new elevator, Gigi Robinson, who is pretty famous in like the Gen Z space in mental health, chronic illness. She's a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, and she's awesome. And we were talking about, as a content creator herself, how she prevents that dopamine rush for when she creates content. And one thing she does, which I don't know how she does this, it's incredible. Anytime she makes content, she puts her phone away. She won't look at the responses she gets for a little while. And that's hard, because when you're doing something intimate, like opening up your bedroom to a podcast, or in your point, right, like making TikToks about a brand you built from scratch, you want that validation from people that what you're doing is right. And so I think it's really interesting and scary, because we have no idea how these instant dopamine hits are going to affect our brains at 80 or 90 years old, right?
Sure.
Like, studies haven't been around enough. I mean, the only thing they studied was like doing cocaine as a rat, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of what we're doing with our phones now.
It's true. It's true. And now the one thing that I would say keeps me grounded, unlike what a traditional social media person would be, that's maybe operating in the realm or in the circus of, providing people entertainment, I will say, some of my content's entertainment, but I think the ethos and motivation of the brand to drink less is something very personal to me that I think needs to be said. And I think totally. I take it upon myself. I think there's a responsibility for people to say, hey, here's how I live my life, and it's a great way. And if you're kind of on the fence, or you're feeling like you're drinking too much, or you've gained a little weight, or you're sleeping like shit, there's another way. Because I'll tell you, I didn't have that message. I had to figure it out for myself. And you don't know what you don't know. So for people just to be able to say, hey, by the way, I'm a regular guy in New York City. I just don't drink. I'm very low. I don't like to say I'm a non-drinker, and then I might have a glass of wine or two at a wedding. But I would say the same thing about if I'm a non-smoker, if I have a cigarette on the golf course. I don't consider myself a smoker. I'm not, I'd like to say I'm a non-drinker.
Well, Garrett, I respect the hell out of what you're doing, by the way, because you're opening up your entire life to people and your perspective, and you're going a bit against the grain, right? You think about a typical guy living in New York City, starting a company, working in an investment bank. You would assume that that person probably drinks and socializes and whatever. Sure. You socialize, you do all that, but you just don't drink. So I respect the hell out of you opening up and being that resource to that person who might need you,
and that's all it
doesn't
is.
know.
Showing.
You know what I mean?
Show me, don't tell me. That's all it
exactly.
is. And it's just saying, like,
exactly.
Here's how I do it. If you got to figure out, use it as a data point. And if you're ever feeling like, hey, maybe I'm doing it wrong, or here's a guy I want to look up to or emulate, well, do it right on, brother. I'm not gonna. I make the content just to put it out there so that maybe it helps somebody. And I'm telling you, it does a lot. And that's the best messages I get is when it's like a younger guy saying, hey, man, I'm making a positive change. I just want to say the content's been really inspirational for me.
I love that. So I was going to go to my next thought here. Sorry, Sam. Real quick, Garrett, talking about those people who are reaching out. I don't know how long you've been posting on TikTok. Like, has there been one story that you could walk us through that like sticks out to someone that you've helped?
I will say there's some little things like I used to post glow ups. I really haven't gotten into that content that much lately, but there was one that jumps out. I remember a lady commenting like, hey, I saw this. I was just grabbing my car keys to go to the wine store, and I saw this content as I was sitting on my couch, and I just want to let you know that I didn't go today. And I know it sounds silly, but like that was the first time in my life where I was like, wow, you are having a positive impact on somebody's life. And whenever I get these kinds of messages, I don't get happy for me. I get happy that somebody's kind of waking up a little bit and just trying something new and trying to make a change. But that was the first time where I was like, oh my God, look at this, a night off. And it's like, if you didn't see that video, you would have kept drinking for another night. And who knows, maybe you went back to drink, but that's not the point. That night you didn't. So, I do think that it kind of, you forget how much a small voice can make a change, even just by leading by example.
And it reaffirms your mission, right? And obviously you have sales and bottom lines and things to worry about. And Parker and I eventually, of course, want to, do this full time and make money off of it. But the core root of our mission is to help other people, right? Make other people feel empowered, make sure that they know they're not alone. We both are united with that common mission. And I think it's nice to have those gentle reminders of why you're doing it, why you're putting in the long hours. Like beyond the dollars and cents, all three of us just want to help other people and make the world slightly a better place.
Yeah,
and when you hear those stories, I mean, I'll never forget when Parker and I got our first story of helping someone. I was like, I literally thought only our moms listened to this podcast, right? Like we were doing it for so long, and to hear other people be impacted by what you're doing, it makes all the hard work worth it, all the late nights, all the struggles of working two jobs. It's like, that's why we do this at the end.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's what it's all about. The older I get, the more I realize that, success isn't defined by dollars in your bank account. It's defined by how many lives you touch and how many friends you have. And when you throw a party, how many people show up, that kind of thing.
So let's talk about those parties that you throw, because when I'm really intrigued by this.
Fun stuff.
You throw parties.
It's the fun stuff.
I was about to say, we better get invites now.
Let's hear
we're
about the
brothers
fun
at
stuff.
this point.
How does it go down? What are you doing? You throwing parties in Manhattan? Are you throwing parties in Canada? What's the
I'm
deal?
throwing them in Manhattan. So we do them all over. We do some in Brooklyn. We do some in Manhattan. We do cocktail nights, dance parties. Again, it's, now it's bigger than me now. I mean, I just post on TikTok or Instagram and 100 people show up nowadays. It's crazy. We've had thousands of people roll through now. It's pretty wild. And I think what strikes me is different. In any organization, senior leadership really dictates the DNA of the brand. And that's something Elevation Nation, you guys will learn. And that's something with Goldies. We're very much a no asshole policy here. So people get a chance to be kind when at these events. It sounds corny, but I had a girl come up to me on Thursday and was like, I couldn't believe I walked in the door. I came to this party solo. I walked in the door and this group of girls said hi to me. Like, that doesn't happen at the bar. And I think it's very much a space where people can have a glass of wine, have a mocktail, have a beer, have a knot. And the point is, it doesn't matter. And it's just, you're out here to meet some nice people, maybe dance, have a good time, have a laugh. And, we've really been, like I said earlier, a bit of a lightning rod for this kind of thing where, it's all word of mouth. And, we started on TikTok, but now people are bringing their friends and friends of friends. And people are saying, wait, how do you know that guy? It's wild. It's really for like that kind of late 20s, early 30s crowd in New York City. And they're rocking too, man. Like, they're fun time.
Like I said, I'm ready for my invite. I'm going to be watching the TikToks to make sure I know I am ready to come to an event. Parker and I we're in that late 20s, early 30s stage. We're about to cross over, and I'm ready for some more parties like that. And I think, Parker, we probably found who our beverage supplier needs to be for our Elevation Nation events that we're throwing in New York and in DC.
I don't know, man. Who? Oh yeah,
obviously,
who? Gold. Yeah.
Come on, boys. I'm in.
So, Gary,
easy.
You got two flavors, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Now that are out.
Yep.
How'd you come up with them? Like, I always wonder, like, what's the process look like? Are you sitting in your little lab and you're like,
that's how it starts.
Yeah, that's good. This one.
Yeah, at home.
All right, let's walk us through.
Pictures of me making like fake tequila in a pot, that kind of thing. That's how it starts. But ultimately, you got to bring in like a proper beverage guy to kind of codify that formula. I will say the manufacturing and development of the beverages is something that I wish I could dig into a little bit more. I think if I were to do this as a full-time job, learning about the manufacturing process. So I went to school for engineering, so I love process manufacturing. Mechanical engineering is like a huge part of what I loved growing up. So, learning about the chemistry of things and how the pasteurization process and the carbonation process, all sorts of how shelf life, like becoming a subject matter expert in the manufacturing aspect of it is something that I would very much enjoy going down. But at the start, you really reach out to a flavor scientist, and he kind of helps guide you, and you kind of bounce back and forth. It was a lot of 6 a.m. trains up to New Jersey when I was younger. This is like 2 years ago now, of like, you're trying gin and tonic flavors, alternative gin and tonics, and then you head back to the office for 9 in the morning. It was brutal, man, for a while.
It's a grind. Speaking of the office, do people at work know? Are they supportive? What has that been like for you?
Yeah, I think it's not. They're generally supportive. I think as long as you're getting your regular day-to-day work kind of done, I think it's not the worst thing of all time. I do try and keep it pretty separate. If I need to take a day off for a Goldies thing, I do take a day off. I don't really try and blend as little as possible. I might pack some stuff up in between meetings, but certainly not like if I'm work from home, but certainly nothing like, it's not like you're doing 2 jobs at once kind of thing. I do really try and keep the context switching to a minimum in terms of like work time is work time. It's respectful towards your job too, right? Like, you want to be as best you want to do your job, and that's
100%
important to maintain.
And I asked that less of like, how are you splitting your time, and more I think more and more our generation of people want something outside of their full-time job to be passionate about. And I have this feeling that as we've done Elevation Nation and gotten introduced to more and more people, those are some of the best employees at these big normal 9-to-5 corporations. It's the ones that want on their off nights and after work to grind on something they're passionate about, because that passion, no matter what, bleeds in between the two.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a commitment to excellence kind of thing in anything you do. But I think it's just kind of acting like an owner in any job in life. You want to act like an owner, and that's what kind of grounds you as an employee or as a small business owner or as a podcast host. Like, there's going to be those kind of pillars that you fall back on, and excellence and commitment and drive and determination and problem solving and creativity. These kinds of things span across any profession or any role in an organization. So these are qualities you want in an employee.
No doubt. All right, Garrett, I got a question for you. Been thinking about this one too.
Let's hear it.
First of all, what is monk fruit?
Yep.
What is it? I have no idea what that is.
So it's a sweetener, a natural sweetener from Asia that is just, I think it's about 600 or 700 times more sweet than sugar. We've been looking. I alluded to it earlier,
but a lot healthier.
Yeah, it's healthy. Well, I personally don't like aspartame or any kind of like fake sweetener. I don't like the way that it sits on my tongue. I don't like the way. I've never been like a Diet Coke guy. I don't know. I don't like it. I can always tell when something has that kind of fake aspartame style additive there. But there's a couple other we're looking into. Maybe Neotame is one that I think that a lot of people haven't heard of. That's, I think, like 7,000 times sweeter. So you got to be very careful with that kind of stuff. But like, that kind of stuff doesn't induce it.
Is that like a drop?
Oh,
like,
dude, yeah. Like you got to be so careful with it.
How small is that?
Yeah. You got to be so careful with it. But it is. It's like, it's just a way of keeping the calories down in a drink while maintaining. Whenever you do like a more sophisticated beverage and you work with bitters, you can't just have bitters. You need bitter, sweet, and bitter. It's how a drink becomes complex. So. You got to be careful. We do put a little bit of sugar in there, a little bit of monk fruit. It's just a way of making it a little bit more palatable than just a pure bitter drink. Like if you had a tonic water, like a quinine taste, like a gin and tonic, without sweet, you'd be like, oof.
You need balance in all those drinks. Right?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, and
I think what people get in cocktails, what they look for.
Oh, no doubt. And there's flavor fatigue that would get involved as well. Like if you had something really sweet, for example, you would, it tastes great for one sip, but what about sip 12? Or, that's one thing with only having two flavors. Flavor fatigue is an issue. So, you do want to offer those kind of mixed packs. You don't want to just have the watermelon flavor of a drink. And it's something, I say watermelon flavor. We would never do that at Goldies. We try and do a little bit more, mature, complex than just like a watermelon or a blueberry or a cherry. So we're trying to make it at least semi-faux, inspired by alcoholic drinks.
Well, you just let me know when the next train up to New Jersey at 6 a.m. is, because I am so down to do R&D.
Yeah.
That's got to be such a cool process.
It is, yeah.
I mean,
it's got to
so
be really
dope.
cool.
We're working on a lychee martini right now. Like it's just like a little ginny lychee thing, which is really cool.
So we're talking lychee martini is maybe the next flavor.
I wanted to do a berry as well. I mean, it's great. I mean, the cool
berry,
thing is
okay.
You get to experiment, and we're still such a young business that
totally
figuring it all out.
Think about how many flavors are out in the entire world.
Yeah.
Like you could experiment for days, if not years.
Yeah, and even if you just stay in one vertical of like a citrus or a berry, I mean, there's so many ways you can. So many variations and little knobs to turn to figure out and really hone in on what makes a drink a drink.
So we know what maybe is coming next from the actual drink, but what's your big dream, your vision for Goldies? Next step? I'm curious, what's your big for 2023? How about also, we're in 2033.
Yeah.
What does Goldies look
Yeah,
like?
and it's interesting you bring that up because in any kind of business, I'm in this for the long haul. I think that you can be naive and say, hey, yeah, I'd love to start it up and have instant success. But I think it's going to be a 5 to 7 year process if you really want to grow like if you want to grow right. Of course you can grow fast. And I think I'm sure you guys get the non-alcoholic every once in a while an ad, but like you got to own the relationship with your customer, man. And like that takes time to nurture. And, we're not doing the shotgun approach right now to growth. We're doing the sniper rifle, which is own New York City. Like I'm here. I have a network here. We're throwing parties here. We're activating New York City. We want to be the drink of New York because, my feeling on this is the culture from New York trickles down. Nothing really trickles into New York in terms of, drinking or habits. Everything comes, or, fashion would be another one. Everything comes from New York out. So that's the strategy for us, is to own New York and be like the working professional beverage. I think we're going to try and raise some money. I think it's funny, the more I focus on the end customer, the more people want to give you money. It's not when I needed money at the start, and you weren't focused on the customer, it was such a tough thing to do. And now that you have customers and have, distribution and sales, people are always, I would say maybe once every couple of weeks, somebody reaches out, some VC firm or something goes, hey, what are you doing? Kind of thing. So, there's that aspect of it. But you got to be the cool guy. Like there is human dynamics. There is a poker aspect of information asymmetry aspect of, what you want, what you can't have kind of thing. And there's the human dynamics of negotiation, and you just got to be the cool guy. The best way to get money is to not need money. That's kind of how we're working on right now.
That's dope. You're in a great spot, and I think it's really inspiring to see where you've taken it so quickly. And obviously, Parker and I look up to you in your journey and where you guys have gone so far. I do have a question. We've obviously talked, Garrett, a lot about Goldies and gotten into flavors and how it started and the inspiration. Yep. And Parker asked where you guys wanted to take it in the next few years. Yep. But I'll ask you for Garrett as the human being, what do you care about in the next couple of years? Obviously, Goldie's a big part of it, but how are you balancing the other parts of your life?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've been trying to, I'm single right now, so I have been trying to get out there and get back into dating. And when you're in your early 30s in New York City, like that's, as a guy, like this is like the best time. I'm sitting here in my apartment in the West Village. Like I don't want to say I'm doing all right there, but it's something that Garrett, the guy, I'm really proud of who I've become. And I have grown so much in the last 2-3 years. And I kind of talked about it earlier with having some of these deeper conversations, just being very aware. I'm starting to find myself, like you talked about a gratitude journal. Like I'm finding myself more grateful for things like even team dinners, one-on-one dinners, being able to go for my walk in the morning. It's such a weird feeling. Like I think sometimes with guys, you can shut these feelings off a little bit. But I'm just really proud of where I'm at right now, and I can feel myself continuing to grow. That's kind of, an internal Garrett thing, but an external Garrett thing, I would like to have kids and all that kind of stuff that traditionally you would do. But with the business, it's, I'm just kind of floating right now. What I'm really focusing on is putting out energy and letting the universe send it back to you. And I know that sounds corny, but like, it really does come back tenfold. And when you're helping people and doing the right thing and meeting people, I don't know, it's crazy how one conversation can change your life, or one handshake can do that, or go on one podcast. Like it's crazy. And totally. I kind of, instead of trying to fight that, I think I've very much been leaning into that.
I love that. What I like to say, proud to be me, proud to be where I'm at, right? And that's what it sounds like for you. And then also you're just being, you're just doing, and you're emphasizing that if you're doing good for the world, the good for Garrett will come along the way. I love that. That's very, very cool. Mm-hmm. All right, Garrett, we got another section. We got a rapid fire section. We got a few questions we're just going to throw your way.
I'm ready. I'm
Obviously,
open.
You seem very ready for it. All right. I saw you're a concert promoter. So, if I had a magic wand, what is the one concert I'm making happen right now for you?
I There is a band called Dire Straits that plays a show at the Alchemy. They're an old British band. I would probably go. I would love to be transported back to go see Dire Straits. You know, that era of music is. I love live music. I love live music. Very much love live music.
Totally.
So, you know, seeing them play like Sultans of Swing or something like that. I don't know if these are for the old heads, the Elevation Nation old rock and roll guys. But yeah, Dire Straits concert would be.
My dad will appreciate that. Don't worry.
Yeah,
we got the record wall right here, Garrett. So
okay, there we go. Man. Yeah. No, listen,
I love it.
I love all types of music. I go to electronic music shows. I'll go to jazz club. Like we were sitting in the park the other day listening to some jazz guys rip it, and like I love all live music. But I think there's still, for me, I love a fucking band.
You just want a band that like, yeah, but you just want a band that just. They're obviously putting on good music, but like as part of it, they're rocking. They got the crowd, and oh man, you don't need to look at your phone or anything because you are in it, and they're fully bringing it too.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right, this is going to be a tough question. I feel like this is asking you to pick your favorite child, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tweak it a bit. What different vibes do you have that you associate with your flavors? Is there a different
they're very
time
much
of day?
Yeah, very much is.
Yeah.
I think when we started, not to say this kind of ties back of what the brand wants to be and the brand identity. When we started with the cucumber flavor, it was very much trying to be an alcohol replacement. And I think as we've gotten older, like it's not necessarily about trying to match one-to-one with alcohol. I think it's trying to maybe take inspiration from that. But with yuzu, it's like yuzu, you can drink it middle of the day kind of thing. Now there are some people tend to think of daytime drinks and nighttime drinks. I think you would look at some of the sodas as like daytime Olipop or Poppy as daytime drinks. They're not really, people don't look at them as something you would have. If you were at a bar or something, you'd see some beers and some Goldies that coming out in a bucket kind of thing. But yeah, from an identity perspective, there is a difference. I think, for us, where we're trending to is more of an easy drinking kind of beverage. Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. I think obviously that market is something you need. And just because you drink soda during the day doesn't mean that at a day drink, you're going to be wanting to crack open a Coca-Cola or any of those other competitors that you might have. You want something a little bit more elevated that makes you feel classy, like an adult, like you belong in that space. And I'll tell a quick anecdote. I know this is rapid fire. Sorry, Parker.
No, not at all. Let's go.
But I remember vividly, right? Being broke my first year in New York City, not wanting to be hungover for the next day, whether we were out on a Thursday and I had to go into the office or just having things to do. And I'd buy my one beer and I'd walk around with it empty the entire day because I didn't know what to do with my hands at the bar if I wasn't holding something. And that, I'm sure there's science behind this, but that like comfort zone of needing to have something in my hand to feel like I fit in was so obvious. Like I would be holding the same beer for like 2 hours.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a huge thing for me too. Like everybody's got to have something in there. You're conditioned, dude. You've been drinking for 10 years. Like, that's what you need. Like, it's a Pavlov's dog kind of effect, man. Like you're at the bar, you're doing this. Like that's pretty much, so it is what it is. That's what we do.
Yeah. So I just thought of this. Like, do you find, obviously it'd be weird if people were drinking beer during like the work day or they're out like in their office drinking beer or having a martini. But like, I also think like the non-alcoholic drinks, like, have you found that people are drinking like during the work, like those drinks during the work day?
Yeah, it's funny. We had one the other day.
Is that a thing? Is that a
Yeah, we had one the other day. One of our customers is a nurse, and she sent us a picture the other day of her like at the off, at a hospital saying, I'm having a thing, and I made this comment about, you're drinking on the job, eh? And she ended up taking the post. Yeah. She took the post down because it's like, hey, I actually don't want my nurse drinking a seltzer-looking water, before she's going into the operating room, right? So you try to make the drink look like an alcoholic drink, but to the detriment of somebody. I don't want my doctor before he's going into surgery drinking a seltzer.
My doctor's not drunk; they just are high on vibes.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
it's just different.
It's zero alcohol, but people be like, why is he drinking seltzer?
I love it.
All right, Garrett, last rapid fire for you. What is your favorite non-bar social event?
Non-bar social event. Okay, well, I mean, like we kind of talked about it earlier, live music for sure. But I would say I would say probably a picnic in Washington Square Park or Central Park has been, when I first met my group of guy friends down here, going to the park was just a really great, cheap way to this was back when I was drinking. You could bring like a little bottle of rosé and sit out with some cheese and grapes kind of thing. I know it sounds corny, but like you can snowball into something so big, so much bigger. And it's a great way to be social without having to spend a lot of money. When you talk about a bar, a lot of people talk about third places, which is a third space would be something that is not necessarily your home or office, but it's like a little bit somewhere you could gather. And traditionally for a lot of people, that was a bar or a coffee shop. And third places are kind of having a little bit of a renaissance now of like, what does that look like for a lot of people? And, for me, when I first came to New York City, the park was an awesome way to meet and hang out.
The best. I can't wait for it to get warm. Actually, today was pretty nice. Hopefully, the good weather continues.
No, don't get your hopes up. This is that little glimmer of hope we get.
You're right. You're right.
It's going to be cold, really cold at the end of February. So don't get your hopes up too much now.
Okay, so fine. In May, when it's beautiful out, hopefully not like crazy summer already in New York City, like park. But the thing is, the park gets fucking busy.
Yeah, you got to get there early, man.
It's
Come
crazy.
on now.
Yeah.
Don't be
I think we got to
hungover.
go meet Garrett. We got to meet Garrett out in the Brooklyn area. Find a park out there, and when the weather gets nice, we'll grab some Goldies.
Hang out in the park.
Yeah, and we got this new cafe. We've got this new cafe we've been working with in Soho too that has a great little outdoor area. We'll get a little outdoor party going, and April kind of thing. Live music for sure. Food, it'll be great.
Parker and I are there, man. You know it. We'll be there. Yeah. Garrett, this has been incredible, man. I gotta end with our favorite question. We ask every elevator. You now have been initiated. You are in the nation, man. You are an elevator, obviously, through and through. So we ask everybody to share their mental motto with Elevation Nation, a phrase that you live your life by. So Garrett Thomas, what is your mental motto?
My God. So I know I was trying to memorize this one. I think
you can take a second and look it up.
No,
if you
know what? I'm not. I think it would. I want to say the quote by Calvin Coolidge that I try and remember all the time. It talks about persistence and determination are omnipotent, and like nothing can take the place of determination and persistence. It's something like talent will not, genius will not, unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. But it's just, I think it just goes back to determination and persistence is what gets you over the hill. I think there's days that I don't want to work on Goldies. There's days I don't want to cut content. I'm sure there's days you guys don't want to do a podcast, but the point is you are doing it, even if you're not. And I try and think, I say this as well with, like working out, like try and be kind to yourself. But if you only have 50% in the tank and you give 50% that day, well, then actually you gave 100%. So, you really got to string momentum together and that kind of thing.
That might have to be your motto, Garrett. That was pretty good,
cool,
man.
Right there.
There's me rambling. There's the most political non-answer for you guys that I could ever give. If this Goldies thing doesn't work out, I got a future in politics. How does that sound?
I like it.
That was awesome. Dude, this has been incredible. Again, I think it's really nice through this podcast we get to meet guys who inspire us, right? And Parker and I as young men on our journey in young adulthood, we started this thing because we were lost. Mm-hmm. And so it's really inspiring to see you working 2 jobs, having something you're so passionate about, and having a shared common interest and mission with us of trying to make the world a better place and help people. And so it's really been an honor to get to know you a little bit more. And seriously, I'm going to be waiting for my personalized invite.
I know.
To these
but
events.
for real, guys,
TikTok's not enough. I want an e-bite.
After this, send me your address. Text me your address, and I'll send you a case. All right?
Oh, my God. Too kind.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm going to spread this. You said you want to focus in New York first, but if you send me a case, I'm going to spread it around D.C.
Yeah, there you go.
So I hope that's all right.
There you go.
I don't think he's going to have a problem with that.
Yeah, no doubt.
No.
All right, Garrett. Appreciate it, man.
Okay, boys.
Sammy, you want to close this out?
Yeah, I'm going to keep this out.
Yeah, Elevation Nation. Until next week. Peace.